こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材は、ブライトンの三笘薫に関する動画です。ブライトンは、リーグ戦直近13試合で1勝しかできておらず、クリスタルパレス並みに低調な状況ですが、ブライトンは、三笘薫も復帰し、今いるメンバーで十分に戦える状態にも見えるのに、誰もが最高の状態に見えないという点や、試合の中でも良いパフォーマンスや流れもある中で、結局勝ててなかったり負けてしまうというのが、パレスよりも不安が大きいとさえ個人的には感じます。もうブライトンも降格争いに入ってきているというのが誰もが感じているところで、ブライトンファンにスカイスポーツがインタビューしていますが、この少し複雑にも見える、難しい状況をどのように感じているのかを話し、その中でも、三笘薫は未だ最高の選手の一人だと強調しています。実際に、どのように話しているのか、チェックしてみましょう。
So, Rob, a lot of the fans don't seem to be particularly happy. They might be panicking about relegation, but the club, no plans to change the head coach right now. It is a case of fans panicking, but the board remaining calm.
Yeah, I think both of those are the case. Brighton is struggling right now for form, coinciding with I think the level of the Premier League, that kind of mid-table, you'd say, is very high. Everybody beats everybody, and there's some high levels reached in the last two seasons. Brighton are in that. And I think the frustration from the fans is coming from they've seen a high standard of football, high turnaround, and also consistency. And also, let's face it, in that top half of the Premier League. Now they're not in that stage. Now they're losing, or is it 1 win in 13?
Yeah, 1 in 13 in the league.
So that's not good form. And that's where the frustration is coming from. But I would say this. Mr. Hertzler, I like him a lot, and I think he's got a high ceiling of potential as a manager. I think Brighton would be worse off if they got rid of him.
OK, right, well, let's see what the Brighton fans think. Ryan Adsit joins us now. Ryan, first of all, how worried are you right now?
Oh, that's a big first question. I would say if we lose to Brentford and we go into that, the Forest game afterwards, who have also turned over their manager, then potentially you'd say worried about relegation. I wouldn't say that it's the biggest concern, but I would definitely say that relegation, the fact we're even having this conversation is crazy when you think about Brighton in the last couple of years.
I'm told that you were nodding and agreeing with everything Rob said until he said that Fabian Hertzler is still the right man.
Yeah, I was actually. I thought he was actually spot on with the turnover, the amount of transfers that has happened between the clubs of particularly Brighton and Chelsea, as we all know. I think we've had a lot of not just players leave, but also staff that have been borderline detrimental, I think, to some of the negotiations and stuff like that over the last couple of years. I think you have noticed a drop-off in terms of the players that have been brought in from Brighton as well. But I think in terms of the manager, now, for me, the boos being sort of the main focal point of this is kind of where it stems from. I think I wouldn't say he's the only one to blame, but I do think he's definitely a big portion of it. I think the style of play over the last couple of years has only suggested a regression in my eyes. I think when you saw him come in comparison to De Zerbi, you saw a complete change in style of play. And I think only being good for 15, 20 minutes a game is just not good enough for the Premier League standard. And unfortunately, you are just going to get left behind.
I got a question for you, actually. Where Brighton arrive right now in terms of how the fans see the team, is it because you've seen such a high level in the last couple of years and there's a frustration with that? And also not winning and players going out, is the frustration coming from that especially?
Yeah, I think there's been a high level. I think we've also, I've got to admit, we've let go of a lot of high-level players, of course. But I would argue we've still brought in a lot of high-level players, and we've still got a lot of high-level players. I think Mitoma, Minte, Van Hecke, for example, Beleba, they're all talked about for Champions League moves. And you think, well, if we've got Champions League quality players, but so to speak, right, potential players at this club, and I think Mitoma is, for me, still meant to be the best player for Brighton and one of the best I've ever seen at the club. In terms of high-quality players, I would argue, yeah, he's unbelievable. I still think he's underrated. That would be my hot take. But I think in terms of players I physically witnessed with my own eyes, I believe that we've got a more than capable squad. The issue is we're not maximising the absolute potential out of these players anymore, and we're not really utilising them in the same way. You see, for example, Max Wiefer comes in and our technical director called him the best deep line playmaker in the world at the time. We've only seen him play right back. And it's so baffling at times. You're thinking, Brighton used to be the club where players would come in and you would see a complete progression in not just them as a player, but them as a person. And they would turn into this absolute machine that they can be. Whereas now you kind of just see the players get loaned out, they kind of fizzle out. And, we might make signings and people start questioning the transfer fees. Are they actually that good? And I think I'm not quite so sure.
Isn't this a realistic position, though, for Brighton right now? Because there's been injuries this year and last year, of course, new manager. But also, I think the high level of De Zerbi's football was one of the best we've seen. Now there's a drop-off with Hertzler and the injuries. Is it not more realistic that Brighton this is the position for them this year?
Can I hit you with a stat there before you answer that, because this is relevant to it? Ryan, this has probably been levelled at you before, but Fabian Hertzler, 64 Premier League games, 92 points, all right? Roberto De Zerbi, after 64 Premier League games, 93 points. There's only 1 point difference. So when we talk about the highs of De Zerbi, it's almost identical.
Yeah, you could say it's identical. I think you also look at the two squads, especially in De Zerbi's second end to his reign. I think that second half is insane. We were playing in European football 3 games a week with a worse and weakened squad in comparison to what it was when he got to Europe. We lost Caicedo and McAllister, didn't replace them. And I think you could clearly see that we were absolutely, legs were burnt out, and everything that he was saying at the time was fair. I think everyone agreed with him at the time. And I think once that transition comes in, obviously, I think we finished 11th, and that was quite disappointing at the time. We've brought in a lot better players since then. We've spent, I think, £250 million in Fabian Hertzler, and we've also signed some exceptional players. I've got to say it. We've signed some very good individual players. I think I wouldn't so much look at the points per game progression. I'd probably look at player-by-player progression, and I'd look at the individuals at this club. I could accept if we were sort of losing games and we were down at the bottom and we were playing very good football. You could see that there was a real progression still in the club, whereas I just don't think that still exists. And for you to say realistic, I just wanted to answer that piece. Was it realistic for this club that I watched in League One to be playing in Europe, in Amsterdam? I don't think so.
Yeah, good point.
Are you spoiled then now?
Yeah, good point. Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe they are. But Ryan, thank you.
I wish.
次は解説です。今回は少し難しそうに見えても、トイックによく出そうなボキャブラリーもいくつかありましたので、本日の解説をチェックしてみましょ
う。For form, coinciding with the...
coincide with は何かと重なるという意味です。何かが偶然同じタイミングで起きるときに使います。試合の不調が怪我人続出と重なったというような場面でよく出ます。ビジネス英語でも価格上昇が需要の増加と一致したのように使われます。ポイントは偶然同時に起きているというニュアンスです。原因と結果を強く断定する言い方ではありません。ニュース英語やスポーツ討論でよく出る便利な表現です。
For form, coinciding with the... For form, coinciding with the...
That have been borderline detrimental, I think.
デトリメントは悪影響のある、有害なという意味です。少し固めの英語で、ニュースやビジネスの文脈でよく使われます。形としてはデトリメント統合が定番で、何かにとってマイナスと言えます。例えば、sleep is detrimental to performance なら、パフォーマンスに悪影響という意味です。スポーツでも、怪我や疲労がチームに悪影響という話で出てきます。フートよりもフォーマルで、客観的に不利益を言う語感です。日本語では悪影響やマイナスと訳すと実勢です。
That have been borderline detrimental, I think. That have been borderline detrimental, I think, is kind of where it stems from.
stem from は何かに由来する、何かが原因だという意味です。原因を説明するときに少し固めに言える便利な表現です。come from よりも分析的で、ニュースや解説でよく使われます。例えば、The problem stems from injuries は問題は怪我が原因です。ポイントは根っこがそこにあるという感覚です。サッカーでも不調の原因や戦術の問題を語るときによく出ます。日本語では何かが原因、何かに起因すると訳すと自然です。
Is kind of where it stems from. Is kind of where it stems from. That would be my hot take.
ほっとけは、あえて言う強めの意見という意味です。SNS やスポーツの議論で、少し攻めた主張をするときに使われます。反論されそうだけど言うね、といい、上置きのニュアンスがあります。冷静な分析というより、刺激的な持論を出すときに合います。日本語では、ぶっちゃけあえて言うなら、賛否アップルと思うけれどが便利です。短くまとめるなら、私の持論ですが、が一番使いやすいでしょ
That would be my hot take. That would be my hot take. They kind of fizzle out.
フィズルアウトは、尻すぼみになる、だんだん消えるという意味です。爆発的に終わるのではなく、静かに勢いがなくなって終わるイメージです。サッカーでは、良い形で攻めたのに最後は形にならず終わるときによく使います。The attack fizzle out は、攻撃が尻すぼみになったです。計画や交渉にも使えて、Dio fizzle out は、ダウトは、話が立ち消えになったです。日本語では尻すぼみ、立ち消え、フェードアウトが使いやすいです。覚えるコツは、シュワッと弱く消える、音を想像することです。
They kind of fizzle out. They kind of fizzle out.
Ryan, this has probably been levelled at you before, but
レベルには、水準という意味が有名ですが、動詞で向けるという用法もあります。特にレベルクリティシズムアットゥの形で、誰かに批判を向けるという意味になります。ニュアンスは狙いを定めて直接ぶつけるでかなり固めの表現です。日常会話よりも、ニュース記事やビジネス文書で見かけることが多いです。ブレームよりもフォーマルで、少し客観的に書かれる感じがあります。日本語では批判を向ける、非難の矛先を向けると訳すと自然です。
Ryan, this has probably been levelled at you before, but Ryan, this has probably been levelled at you before, but
いかがでしたか？個人的には、三笘薫に関しても、どの試合でも良いプレーはいくつかあると感じますし、やはり違いを見せる場面や、三笘だからこそチャンスにできた場面も少なくないと思いますが、それでも全体として見ると、まだまだできるような感じがしてしまいます。トイックマ自身のコンディションというよりも、チーム全体のパフォーマンスに影響を受けているような気もしますが、まだまだできると思いますし、それを期待したいと思います。最近はなかなかワールドクラスのウィンガーとして名前が出ることも少なくなってしまいましたし、移籍の話もないことから、獲得したいと思うクライムも減ってしまっているようにも感じますが、ブライトンファンは特に、そうでなくても、万全な三笘薫がワールドクラスのウィンガーだと得ている人は少なくないでしょうし、そういう三笘薫を期待しているのも実感します。もうリーグもあと12試合ですが、シーズンの終盤戦にどれだけ調子をさらに上げていけるか、楽しみにしたいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。